you're hiring humans that you used to be. Meaning that at
Man,
some point you were 21 years old and you were the millennial that people said didn't know how to grind, didn't know how to work, right? That
yeah,
just first generation. But someone at some point in your career
gave you a
probably
show.
gave you some game, right? They invested into you. And that's how you got to where you're at now. And so we oftentimes forget that. So as much as you're going to impact not only the consumers in the market, the way you impact that is through your team members. So the person you're going to have the biggest impact on is your team. And so if you're not prepared to absorb that responsibility, because it is a responsibility, I don't think business ownership is for you.
Yo, this is the Streetwise Podcast, where we help you level up your game, level up your leadership, and level up your life. I'm your host, Matthew McReynolds. I'm a multi-brand franchisee, and I'm a franchise consultant, which means I help people find, launch, and build their ideal franchise business. My main goal is to help you get off of zero and become the person that your dreams need you to be. Buckle up, get your popcorn ready, let's go. Streetwise Nation, we got Manny Guzman from Franchise Fastlane with us today on the Streetwise stage. What's up, man? How you doing?
What's going on, brother? Good seeing you again. We were just talking about connecting to Memphis, and always a fun time. So much energy. Now I'm back in Nashville after what were the delays across I think the world, right? The world shut down for a second, and I can't complain too much considering I only have to drive 3.5 hours from Memphis to Nashville. So I checked a few things off my box there to see the rest of Tennessee while I'm out here.
There you go. I didn't realize you were in Nashville. How long you been out there?
Gosh, it's been about 4 months now. I've moved out here from Orange County, California. So Southern California, just like everyone else, kind of migrated out east to see what's going on. And, Nashville's a fun town, but I do miss the weather. I can't hide that, but it's been a really good time so far.
So Nashville is a city that I've always wanted to visit. I've never been. I feel like you guys got pretty decent weather in Nashville. You got 4 seasons. You've only been there for 4 months, but I mean,
Right.
anything you can like hype up Nashville to me to like keep it on my bucket list of cities to visit.
100%. And so you just said it, like there's 4 seasons here compared to Orange County where it's 70 across the board, which
That's
once
nice,
again,
though.
I can't
nice.
complain. So
Nice.
I'm getting used to it, but I do appreciate the opportunity to have 4 seasons. Now I got here like late March, early April, and I swear it was spring for less than a week. And when it was spring, it felt really, really nice, like 70, 74 with some breeze. And then one day it just turned south on me. And now it's in the mid 90s and the 80s with humidity. And I'm struggling. I can't lie. And it's been a little bit of a nightmare. I keep checking Google to see, when the weather shifts. So, it sounds like September, October be really nice, but I'm really excited to be out here. And I mean, obviously Broadway Street, ton of live music, a ton of great restaurants. So, I mean, there's so many things to do out here. And if you're thinking about coming out here, I highly recommend it.
No, it's cool, man. So I'm from Austin, Texas.
Right.
And so very familiar with the whole live music scene. That's kind of where Nashville got put on my radar. And I'm learning a strength in this game that what we do is empathy. You gotta have empathy for folks. So I will choose to appease you. And I'm out here in Texas at 100 degrees. 90 sounds good to me, but I feel for you. It's new for you, bro. It's new.
Well, hey, I appreciate that. I've never been to Austin. I've always wanted to go. And fun fact here, I am with Waxpot. Little plug there.
Yeah.
Our first confirmation day is actually going to be next month in mid-August, and it actually is in Austin. So I'm very excited for my first trip to be a confirmation day to welcome some new franchise partners to the brand.
Let's go. So yeah, man, we're gonna talk some Waxpot today. Don't you worry, listener. Don't you worry. We're gonna talk some Waxpot. But the first time that you and I met was at my very first franchise conference in New Orleans. You were one of the dudes that was crazy enough to wake up at 4:30 a.m. in the middle of a conference to get up and play pickleball. You've been doing any pickleball lately? Like you still rock with it?
I haven't pickled since that time. I don't know if that's what they call it. They call it pickling.
I don't know either.
I'm going to run with it. I've only played like a handful of times because I have an ego, I guess, and I refuse to, I still think I'm an athlete. Yeah, I still think I'm an athlete, but my back will tell you otherwise. But I had a really good time. But I haven't played pickleball since. But if I remember correctly, I did pretty well.
You did pretty good. I feel like you and I were like on the same like level of talent ability. There were
Yeah.
people that were way worse than us, and
Yeah.
there were people that were better than us. I appreciated you because we flowed in the
Yeah.
same
Hey,
the
just
same
happened to
vibe.
be there,
But
not slow down the game. That's all I was trying to do.
there it is. There it is. Yeah. So for me, that was my first franchise conference. How long have you been with Fastlane? And maybe explain to me like what your role is and how you got to the organization.
Yeah. So I'm coming on almost a year now at Franchise Fastlane.
Okay, let's go.
And so prior to me launching Wax Pot here a couple months ago, I was on the Exercise Coach. So one of the tried and true brands of Franchise Fastlane, and happens to be a fitness brand. And that's really been where my background has been my whole career. When I first started working back when I was 21 years old, I started off at 24-Hour Fitness, so big box gyms, and was a sales advisor, worked my way up to a sales manager, then a general manager. So all the things you do in a gym, and had a really good time. It was hard not to have fun when you get to talk to people about health and wellness, right? And so
Sure.
I'm very appreciative of the time I had at 24-Hour Fitness. And more importantly, it's a big company, right? And so, everyone talks about, getting out of corporate America. But at the end of the day, for most people, corporate America is what taught you the hustle, what taught you the game, and is really putting you in a situation to go really operate your own businesses, right? And so I really appreciated my time there. I had some phenomenal leaders that taught me sales, marketing, leadership. Ultimately, during the pandemic, we shut down, right? Like big box gyms found it very, very hard to operate. And towards the tail end of it, we were opening, closing. And that was a complete nightmare, just trying to squeeze as many members as legally possible in the gym and rotating every hour in and out. And it just getting to be a lot. And, by that point in my career, I was, starting to think what was next. I didn't want to be that, 30-year-old or 40-year-old general manager in a gym my whole life, right? So I was like, hey, there's got to be something past the gym. Turns out it was fitness, and I got a call from a few of my friends that were at 24-Hour Fitness. Fitness is a small world, just like franchising. And at the time, they were at Exponential Fitness. So everyone knows Exponential, right? Club Pilates, Pure Barre, Cycle Bar, all the big boutique brands. That's where it's at.
Yeah,
And
if you
so
don't know who Exponential Fitness is, I guarantee you know one of the brands that is in their
yeah,
portfolio. 100%.
that's for
Keep going.
sure. Yeah, that's for sure. And great organization. Had such a phenomenal time there. I had the opportunity to join the Pure Bar brand as a
Okay.
regional and then ultimately national sales manager, where I got to work every day with franchise partners. So wasn't my first day in fitness, but it was my first opportunity in franchising, and dude, that blew my mind. I was completely
Yeah,
blown
what was
away with.
that like?
Dude,
Kind of let's
it
take
was
a little caveat right there. What was that like
yeah.
when you first got into franchising? Because were you on the development side or were you working more hands-on with franchisees?
Yeah, just franchisees. So I was operations, sales and operations. So I didn't do any developing
Interesting.
until I got to Fastlane, and I'll get to how I got there. But
Yeah.
no joke, in my interview with my VP Andrew at the time, shout out to Andrew and the Pure Bar team. We just grabbed a coffee, and he said, "Hey, I know you have a lot of leadership experience in the gym, but how are you going to lead people that don't report to you?" And in my mind, what I was taught in leadership is if you have to flex your title on somebody, you're not that great of a leader. And so I saw that as an opportunity to kind of prove my ability to lead, without having to say, "Oh, I'm your manager, you report to me," right? And
Sure.
so when not really knowing what to expect, in my mind, if you owned a franchise or a business, I thought your business acumen was through the roof. And I thought you might know more than me. You're an MBA, all that kind of good stuff, right? And so turns out I was wrong. And not to say that these business owners aren't savvy, because they're hustlers, that's for sure, right? When you own a franchise, you kind of learn a lot about business really, really quick. And a lot of talented operators in the Pure Bar system and just across Expo in general. What I learned right away was, how do you provide support across a huge system kind of all at once, right? And so that was a fun opportunity for me. But the thing I love most about being at Exponential Fitness was the relationships I built with franchise partners. I still talk to a bunch of the Pure Bar franchise partners today. It's such a relationship based business, and that you can say that about most things, right? But especially with franchising, because these franchise partners have investment, right? They put their money on the line, whether they believe in the business opportunity or a passion for the brand. They're putting their hard-earned money to work, and I felt obligated to do the best I possibly could to help support them any way I could, and their teams. And so it was ultimately an amazing experience. And throughout that time there, I got connected with Bobby Brennan, which everyone seems to know who Bobby is. And,
What is it with my man Bobby Brennan? This is a trend that I'm talking to more and more people, and my audience is going to start recognizing that name before I get him on here as a guest. That man has been so pivotal in getting people into franchising. It's just
yeah.
wild. So how did you meet it?
So I met him through a mutual friend of mine. So I had a buddy that worked at 24 Hour Fitness with me, and then he eventually jumped to D1 during the pandemic, and he became a
Okay.
developer for D1 training. So he introduced me to Bobby, and Bobby, being the relationship person he is, was just planting seeds and opening my eyes to what's available in franchising. Right, I ultimately knew, like, hey, I would have never left Expo, I guess, if I continued to go down a career path there and elevating through promotion. But what stood out to me about development was getting to get in front of franchise partners before they got into the system. Right, I think oftentimes business ownership is this nice shiny object and maybe marketed a specific way. And there's a lot of benefits of being a business owner, but there's also a lot of hard to being a business owner, right? And so I never want to turn anyone away. I just hope to set the right expectations to hopefully get them set up for success so they know what they're coming into. I keep hearing more and more now that, some of the best developers are those folks that came from operations, only because you talked about it earlier, is the empathy piece, right? I know how exciting it can be to jump into a brand and a business opportunity in a really great market. But once again, I really think you have to understand what franchising is and what franchising isn't. And so, Bobby and I were talking for quite some time, and there eventually came a time where, he plugged me in with franchise Fastlane. And what's funny about that is, he connected me with my now VP, Jessica, but Pure Bar franchise partner had actually connected me with Jesse Hudson, who was the former developer on the Exercise Coach and now the VP of Carpool. And so I had a conversation with Jesse the day before I had a conversation with Jessica, and none of us knowing that we all kind of were connected. And so it's kind of funny how worlds collide. And once again, the Exercise Coach came up for an opportunity, and it seemed like a nice organic fit for me to slide from operations into development for a fitness brand, so I can really, take some time to understand what development really is. And so that's always a plug for Bobby, and I think that guy does some work. But I think you're going to hear Bobby and Manny's name in the same sentence here pretty often and pretty soon.
Love it.
And I'm very excited for that, right? I love competition. And more importantly, it's just, I love going against the best. And, Bobby definitely has that.
Yeah, you guys kind of have a mentor turned rival thing going on right now, which I think is cool. We'll keep this episode about Waxpot, though. We won't give him any extra shine. But no, Jessica as well. She, was, I think, one of the very first people that I ever talked to in the world of franchising. And so you are around some high caliber individuals, and so am I, because I'm in the circle now as well. And that's what I love about franchising. I love about being on both sides of it. You said something that was really cool, and it's the mindset of operations, somebody that's working in operations as a support versus franchise development, and the mindset that you have to have. And the way that you said it, it benefits you now being in development, having been in that situation in the past. Can we maybe pause and kind of dive into that a little bit more? What's the difference in mindset? Where does it fall off? And then where do you have strength? In what specific areas are you able to kind of utilize that experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm glad we're diving a little bit deeper on this one. So, from my perspective and maybe just my opinion, I think, the big difference of a developer maybe not coming from operations or in just a sales focused mindset, you kind of forget that once you sell somebody what we got to offer here, they're in the system for quite some time, right? So it's not just, oh gosh, hey, it didn't work out. You can get your money back, right? Cancel
Usually
30 days
10 years.
type stuff,
You're
right?
locked in.
It's usually 10 years, and there's some legalities that go to that, right? And I'm not here to say that there's people just selling, and you can say that in any industry. There's going to be some good eggs and some bad eggs, but at the end of the day, if you're just sales focused and not really having the end result in mind, which is longevity, I think that's a tough place to be, because ultimately how I see our relationship, you as a consultant and us as developers, is we're really brokering relationships, right? Like we're trying to find a good fit for both sides, right? So I always kind of share that, hey, the same to candidates, the same way you're evaluating brands, the brand's evaluating you, right? And that's not to scare anyone away or say, hey, the franchisor is above the franchisee. Dude, they don't exist without each other, right? And the quicker we can get to as an industry to start echoing that message is, hey, we just are doing our best to put the right people with the right brand to hopefully set them up for future success, right? And so where I come in, I guess, where my mentality is from the operations side is, I know that once you get started, you sign your franchise agreement. It's usually, a 6 to 9 month process if you're doing brick and mortar. And that's sometimes a grind and a battle because there's so many moving parts, right? Like you got to go sign your lease. You got to work with the real estate agent. Then you got permits and all these things that could potentially go wrong, and not necessarily just go wrong, but take more time than you would hope, right? And so everyone wants the answers. Hey, how long is it going to take me to get to opening, to break even, to profitability? And hey, that's why we have estimates, right? Because I don't have a crystal ball, and I love to be able to give you an exact answer. And if I could, I would. But all we're really doing is giving you what we've seen on average, and we're going to do our best here to get you above that average, right? And so how I look at it from an operator standpoint is I need this person to be successful long term, because ultimately I represent the franchisor as much as the franchisee. Is I want to make sure that this system's thriving, and that franchise partner comes in and keeps the business as long as they want, or if their play is to exit and flip and do the next thing, then I want them to have that ability. And so I think me coming up in sales and operations, I was taught servant leadership. And so I try to echo that to franchise partners coming in the system, right? Haven't been in the industry before, no big deal, right? Because that's what a franchise does, is help shortcutting that learning curve. But I like to see some sort of leadership experience from a franchise partner, because that's what you're doing, right? You're basically signing up and you're buying yourself to that franchise fee, a CEO title, right? You're giving yourself your promotion, right? Because everyone wants to exit corporate America, whatever your play is. And so, but not realizing, well, dude, hey, you're the guy now. You're the girl. Like you're the things go south, the employees are reporting to you. And so I always just like to, kind of see what people's mentality is towards leadership. And if they're like, hey, I don't want to manage anybody, then, hey, maybe you're a financier and you should go get an operating partner to go run the day-to-day for you, because you're going to have a really tough time managing any business, because most businesses are people business, right? And so that's just kind of what I look for, and how I kind of just, I guess, lean into or leverage, my operations mindset.
No, it's super interesting. I think that the franchisee, whenever they, like you said, they're buying the title. That's a super interesting point. I don't know if I've necessarily heard it like that before, but I resonate with it immensely. And a solid franchisee is somebody that has experience, so they can drive results in an organization. They can build teams, they can rally, they can set a vision, and then they have to be able, this is where it gets tricky. They obviously have to be well financed enough to sustain. I think some people get in, and I coach people to, if you have a minimum, you need to have a minimum plus some. Like you shouldn't go in any system if you barely squeeze past the minimum. But on the other end of it, you've got to be able to find some sort of passion in the widget itself. If it's a beauty concept, maybe you don't necessarily feel passionate about actually waxing people and hair removal, but the end result, you find passion in the end result. And I think franchising is a beautiful thing. I think where it gets messed up is people forget about the end user and the actual franchisee,
right,
and what they're supposed to do with this asset that they just bought if things go south. And I think you have a very interesting perspective, because what somebody buys is often different than what they run and what they own after the fact. And so being the support system as the franchise business coach or operations side, and then taking that to development, that's a lot of words to say. I think that's really cool. Something that you said earlier, though, was understanding what franchising is and what franchising isn't. Dive into that for me. Where do people get that wrong? Maybe we can break up the two. Like, what is franchising? And then we'll talk what franchising is not.
Yeah. So the best way I had heard this, I'm going to give Jesse Hudson some credit here, because I say this like all the time. Franchising is an opportunity, not an annuity, right? Meaning that nothing's guaranteed. And it's also one of these things where it's, hey, once you sign your franchise agreement and then you invest the capital to go build out your business, it's not hands off completely, right? 100%. It's, you got to go run it. Just to your point, right? Oftentimes we forget that our job is not just to broker this relationship, but what we also don't realize at times is, hey, we're putting someone into the market to go deliver that end result to that user. Now, to your point earlier, and I love, is you don't necessarily have to be super passionate about the product. So for example, waxing, maybe you don't like to get your eyebrows waxed or anything waxed, and you don't want to be a waxer yourself, but you believe in what the service or product you're delivering is going to be good for that end user in mind. I think that's the most important thing. If it's not, hey, I'm very passionate about it, right? And so I think that there's that line there. But to circle back here to what it isn't is, and maybe this is sometimes how it's marketed too, with the whole semi-absentee, and there's rabbit holes you can get down that, right? But At the end of the day, you have to go run and operate the business. I can give you all the best practices. I can give you every script, every tool, every resource. But at the end of the day, you have to go bring that to life, right? I can't do it for you. And that's a hard thing for me to accept, because I'm somebody that, hey, if they're not doing it, I want to go help them. I want to go do it themselves. And that's really what I experience sometimes on the corporate side. I really can't. But that even as a leader, and even in your local gym, I'm running gyms, is I can't do things for everyone all the time. And, you have a family, and you got to let the kids go be kids, and they have to grow up and go through it. Right. And so sometimes we're just therapists and say, hey, I completely understand, like, walk me through what's going on. And what I found in my time is sometimes franchise partners just needed to vent, right? They need to hear themselves speak or think things through. I think most of the times they had the answer, they just had to go execute it, right? And so in most models, right, the business is very, very simple, just hard to execute, right? And so you can have 2 employees, so it's a very simple model, but if you can't run 1 employee or 2 employees, you ain't running 10. So either way, it's how do you go execute on that, right? And so what franchising is an opportunity to go execute on a proven model in an industry. What it isn't, it's just for you to turn your head and walk away and assume things are just going to run themselves.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Very well said. And I have Mosquito Joe, my very first franchise. We still own it. We've been in this business for 9 years. So going on our 10 year where we gotta re-sign that agreement coming up soon. It's crazy how fast time flies. But this business, I'll tell you right now, it's dang near absentee for me. Like, sure. I've got the managers, I've got people in place, I've got technicians. But guess what? It's year 9. It took a while to build the business to get to this point. It wasn't year 1, it wasn't year 2, and it was not year 3. I can tell you that. It just takes time to build it out. There's such an opportunity for the catchphrases, right? Semi-absentee, semi-impassive, executive model. I think within franchising, you have the opportunity, period. It's just how much time, money, and resources are you willing to plug in? No matter what, you're going to have to plug into it to get there. Either a ton of time, a ton of money. And those are things I think get slept on in the process for sure. For sure. No, that's good, man. That's good. I want to get into the actual widget itself and talk wax pot. It may explain to me, we talk hair removal, but like what is the business model? What do you guys do for the customer, the people that actually come in and use the service?
We make people look and feel good. That's just the bottom line, right? At the end of the day, it's a hair removal, so it's waxing. I'm not here to overcomplicate it and tell you it's just some magical, formula that we got going on here. It's waxing. Now, we have proprietary formula that we like to use for our soft wax, and we use soft wax, hard wax. Our soft wax is kind of our bread and butter based on how we get it made. But at the end of the day, what we're doing is delivering a very in-demand service and just trying to deliver a better experience that's currently out in the marketplace, right? And so, oftentimes I hear like, oh, well, there's European Wax Center. Good. You can say that about McDonald's, Jack in the Box, Carl's. Dude, there's multiple things of everything, right? And to me, that signals market demand. I'm not someone who could probably go into a brand that hasn't been proven and is new to the industry, because you got to educate the market. Once again, I grew up in corporate America, so I just know how to run the play. And that's where I also think franchising is, hey, you're not here to reinvent the wheel. You're saying you're not an innovator, but you're an executor. And so, hey, here's a model, a proven business model that we're running in an industry that has shown a lot of success. Here's how we do things a little bit differently than the competition. I need you to go to bring that experience to life. And so what we've done in addition to our proprietary formula is we've cut down waxing time. So the industry standard has been 30 to 45 minutes. For Brazilians especially. And to me, that's a really long time to be getting waxed. And now, full disclosure, I've never gone to Brazilian. And I'm someone that believes in, understand your product and service. And so I swear I will explore and figure out how I go get that stuff. Now, it's got to be outside wax pot, though, because that seems like HR issues to me. And I'm just not trying to cross that bridge, right? But I'm someone who's been getting my eyebrows done for God, like over 12 years, right? I got them done for my high school senior pictures. My mom made me. I was so against it. But then after, getting them done, I had some good feedback from some friends. And I'm like, oh, well, shit, like if that's how it's going to look, I'm going to keep rolling with it. And then you saw the trend for men pick up, especially with eyebrows, nose, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, what I like most about it is it's a service that I get done. And it's not fitness, but it is a way to make people feel good. right? I think, it's the way you look impacts your mentality at times. And obviously looks aren't everything, but if you feel good, you usually play good, right? That whole kind of sports adage. And so, I love the opportunity that we have here at Waxpot to come into, like I said, a very in-demand market and to shake things up here and just offer something new and fresh. And we're very excited with what's going on here.
Do you find that the same person that's interested in a boutique fitness concept is going to be similar to somebody who would be interested in something in the beauty space, like a wax pot? Do you find there's any outliers, like somebody that might be looking at a home service concept should also consider something like wax pot in the beauty space? And if so, why? Why do you think that person should at least consider it, even though they don't think their strengths fall into that area?
Yeah, that's a great call out. So number one, the fitness, right? I think that there is a complete synergy between someone who either currently runs a fitness boutique studio or is looking at one.
Okay.
Really the same type of simple business model, meaning that you probably have your instructors, you have your studio manager, and then you have your front desk staff. Same thing with us, right? You have your waxing specialist, right, which are equivalent to your instructors. You have your salon manager, which is your studio manager, and then you have a front desk staff just to keep the front of the house on point. So very lean labor model. And think about if you're currently already a fitness boutique studio and you have an opportunity to put a wax pot next to you, that's great cross collaboration for marketing, right? Because the same consumers going to your boutique studio are probably the same consumers that we're going to pick up. And so, if you think about diversification, that's an easy way to continue to be in, I'll call it health and wellness, right? I think we're trying to label it as beauty, which is a subcategory, but at the end of the day, it's health and wellness to a degree.
Okay,
and
I got
maybe
you.
that's a stretch, and I'm a salesman, so I'm going to go ahead and stretch it out myself. But I think that there's a great synergy there. Actually, one of the candidates that we're talking to now is owned some, I don't know what I can't say here, but owned boutique studios, is now looking for the next thing. And we're in the process of getting him out to our first confirmation day here. And it makes a lot of sense to him. And, brick and mortar, same small space, but there's a lot of fitness concepts for sure, right? So if you've been wanting to go into that and you're willing to accept that level of competition, you come and tell me like, oh, there's a European wax center. What are you talking about, dude? There's a boutique studio in every corner. So this is a little bit less competition, but in the same type of operational model, right? And so if you're current fitness studio owner or you have interest in one, I'd absolutely love to talk to you. I think we'd have a great conversation, and I'd love to put this on your radar.
Yo, thanks for listening this far. It's at this point in the episode that I want to talk about Streetwise franchising, teaching, training, building. Streetwise franchising. As a franchise consultant, it's my job, it's my absolute pleasure, and it's my mission to help aspiring entrepreneurs find, launch, and build their ideal business. I've been a franchise owner for almost a decade. I know what it means to struggle. I know what it means to build a team. If you're ready to get off of zero, if you're ready to build something for yourself, visit streetwisefranchising.com. Let's get the conversation started. Don't wait until tomorrow to build your future. It starts today. Streetwise franchising. Stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Let's get back to the episode. No, do you feel like there's any economic volatility that'll affect the business more in one of those industries? Like, does economic change affect fitness more than beauty? Do they affect each other the same? Have you noticed any trends there, having been kind of on both sides of it? I don't know if that's even a fair question to ask.
No, I think that's a great question. I'm actually glad you raised it. I think me coming from fitness, when you're talking about boutique studio, they're typically higher price points. And so you're looking at a higher income demographic. And then you got people then right in the middle. So in any economic shift, you're going to see a reduction in usually revenue in most businesses, right? That's fair. Now, I think fitness gets impacted less than a lot of other businesses, right? Such as like maybe like, a fast food or a crumble cookie. And then I think beauty is just right below that. And the reason for that is fitness is just a higher ticket item. So it's easy to say no to your $300 membership that you probably only use, half the time versus, hey, if I owned a Planet Fitness or an Anytime Fitness where it's a low price point, $10, those probably get less impacted, right? Because I feel good that I'm a part of a gym, but I'm not necessarily going, but $10 is $10. And I probably don't notice it coming out of my account.
It's harder for me to go to the gym I haven't been to the gym. It's harder for me to go to cancel than it is
$10.
Just
yeah, I was like, that's a waste of gas right there.
Yeah, I'll just keep the membership.
Yeah, and so that I think that impacts fitness to a degree, right? So they'll see a little bit of a downshift there, and then you go into beauty. Well, our our services aren't thousands of dollars, right? The average ticket's around $50. And so whether you're making, $200,000 a year or $40,000 a year, you're probably going to spend a little bit of money on yourself just to feel good. I share this story all the time that during the pandemic, as soon as I could, I called my barber to come to my house because I couldn't go more than a couple of weeks without hair because I didn't feel good, right? And I think there's some mental health wellness to that. And so I think, once again, I think that the beauty industry, especially hair removal, is a little bit more resilient than fitness. But I think both are phenomenal places to be in any economy because you're providing a phenomenal product and service to someone. And I've the cheesy story I always say for fitness is I've never left my gym and thought to myself, gosh, I should not have signed that person up, right? Because in my mind, if you signed up and only used it one more time, I could not have made your life worse. I could only have tried to help encourage you to the path forward, right? And so, once again, to answer your question is I think beauty has a little bit of a leg up there because it's a different price point.
So I want to thank you for that answer. You validated that it was a good question, and then you gave a very well articulated answer. So I'm glad you brought up the barber because I got to call you out right now. You got one of the freshest cuts. You got one of the freshest cuts that I've seen in the game, and I actually noticed when you presented to our room. Like, man, I got to get on Manny's. I got to get on Manny's haircut game. I've been cutting my own hair since COVID, and I'm getting better, but
it's not impressive, dude. That's hard.
It's not good enough, man.
Man.
From one guy to another, you got a nice fade, my guy.
I appreciate that, dude. I've been getting my hair cut once a week for like 4 years. So that's a shout out to my barber. I just rock the cut. My barber does a Keontae out here in Nashville, Tennessee. If you're in town, come visit. The guy knows what he's doing. But
shout out, let's go.
I just got to show up, man. And so I appreciate that. And once again, it makes me feel good whenever I leave a cut. I just feel a lot better, right? And so once again, I think that's why I speak differently to the waxing services and beauty services in general. I'm not trying to be egocentric or just, looking like looks are everything. I just want to feel good. And if that's for me getting a haircut once a week, then that's my thing. And if it's for someone else going on a walk every night, then dude, that's your thing, dude. Just do your thing.
No, I think that's important. Something that I struggled with when I first came onto this side of the game as a consultant in my broker network, Franchoice, was I come in from a slightly different demographic than most people do that are on the consultant side. And I'm not as polished, right? Like I'm pretty rough and raw around the edges. And that was a lot of the critique and criticisms that I got early on. And when you talk about presenting yourself, I had an internal struggle on, well, I don't want to be fake. I want to be authentic. I want to present my personal brand and who I am. But I think you hit something on the head there in that you can do all of those things while presenting the best version of who you authentically are. Yeah. Like, I'm not just going to show up. I'm going to show up as the best version of myself today, and whatever it takes to do that. For me, I notice a significant difference when I go on a run in the morning and when I don't. Yep. I'm not always my best self when I don't hit the run in the morning. I feel better when I do. And then the other thing you said about the memberships, I have a membership at Crunch Fitness up here in Allen, Texas. My wife has a membership at BFT, another franchise concept. Yeah. She loves it. The price difference, though, and we're kind of in that demographic where both of us don't go to BFT, but if we both had like a wellness type of a business, you might still be able to maintain both of us. And so from an investor's perspective, thinking about who your ideal customer is in your market, it gives you a little bit more range to play with than something that's more boutique. But the second part of my question earlier was, what about the person that's like, I'm home services or bust. I'm a general contractor. I've been painting and doing floors my whole life, and now I want to streamline it through a franchise system. Why should that person consider something in the health and wellness or beauty space?
Yeah. And number one, I love home services myself, right? I think it's a great business, great industry to be in, right? Like when you think recession resilient, that's gotta be up there, right? Because if your sink breaks, you gotta fix it in most cases. So I'm completely aligned with why that makes sense. And for that individual, if it's just you running the show and you're hands on, then dude, go do your thing. And if that's what you're passionate about, then do it, right? So what's funny is the couple candidates that we are talking to as well too, that's been their first look with home services. And then the consultant, franchise consultants, by the way, shout out to franchise, leading the charge here with our pipeline here, and couldn't be more excited about some quality candidates. You guys always deliver for us, so we appreciate that.
Let's go.
So what happens though when you're buying a business, and you probably know this more than anyone else, is you got to get your spouse on board. right? Because
Yeah,
it's a grind, and dude, it's a family business to a degree because it's going to take a lot of your time and attention away from the family.
100%.
Right. And so if there's not that,
100%.
agreement, that's a tough place to be. And so when the consultants have been showing beauty and waxing, they're like, the wives, the spouses get so, like, I know that, I love that. They can get behind it. Maybe they can get more involved in the business, right? Because they can go lead culture into the studios. And plus, dude, you got your walking billboard there. Take your smoke show wife, go put her on the marketing collateral and have her bring her friends in. And then
Let's
you
go.
already got yourself a business, right? And so the husbands usually have been like, I don't want that, it's not me. Or then they see the financials, right? And so then all of a sudden they show more item 19, which is going to show you top line revenue in the millions of dollars, which is very hard to do in a lot of businesses, right? And so I think the stat is like less than 10% of small businesses make over $1 million top line. So that's not easy to do in a small square footage. And then you stack in our margins, which we show in our item 19, 24 to 39%. Adjusted for EBITDA, like that's phenomenal. And so it's very hard to say no to taking a second look at that, right? And so I would share with anyone, if you got home services on your radar, dude, good for you. And I understand why, but take a look at us, right? Just in case that, hey, maybe my wife does want to be more involved, or maybe I do think there's a better opportunity in my market for this specific brand and service, right? And so I think it's worth a fair look. And, I think, and maybe I love your perspective on this from a consultant standpoint, is you want that candidate to see a couple different options, right? That way it just validates that, hey, no, I am a home service guy, I'm going to go all in. That way there's no regret.
That's good.
So I look at it.
No, I appreciate that. So again, for context, I am the end user as a franchisee. I own multiple concepts, but I'm also that front line as the consultant and the broker that's bringing people into the pipeline in the beginning. So I have a very interesting perspective, similar to you, who has been in the middle as support on franchise operations, and then now currently in your seat as development. And so when we added our second brand, we actually went through that process. And I was looking at some wellness concepts, and we ended up going with home services. But there is a piece of me, because I did get my wife involved. I had to. It wasn't going to fly if we didn't. And because adding number 2 was like, are you crazy? I was like, well, let's look at the opportunities here. And she actually got really excited about some of the wellness concepts, and that excitement, as we just finished year 1 of our second brand, and that excitement, because she's not as involved as she would have been, has fizzled down a little bit. And there is a piece of me that's like, man, if we would have done something different, I could have seen her actually like taking ownership, especially as a stay-at-home mom. I mean, that's a hard enough job in and of itself, to have something that can fill back your cup and give you a sense of purpose, which is what we're looking for her now. Just, I'm real. I let it be known on the podcast. Like, that's something that is important for us. And like I could have totally seen that. So from that end, I feel you. On the point that you said about as a consultant, I do agree as well that, at least personally, I like to show somebody brands and concepts that I think they'll be a good fit in. I think their model for what they want, what they believe that they're going to be strong in, it fits the ideal franchise owner's role within that business. But I always love showing them something that shakes it up a little bit, that makes them kind of sit back and like almost gives them the like little side look at first, like, why would you show me this? Because when they see the numbers, when they see what the actual role of the business owner is and what it takes, and then when you remind them, it's not about the widget, it's about what the widget can do to help you achieve your dreams. That starts to actually open up some light bulbs in people's minds, and it changes their perspective a bit.
100%, man. That's exactly what it is, right? I don't think you could have brought it home any cleaner.
No, that's good, man. All right, so let's talk franchise Fastlane. And so explain to me, like, you guys are a part of an organization, FSO, Franchise Sales Organization. And you guys have teams, and you guys are kind of broken up. So explain to me, somebody that's on the outside, like how it works. Like, what's the team breakdown like? Like, how many brands do you have? A lot of my audience, they're completely unfamiliar with what an FSO even is. So maybe break it down from your perspective, being with the organization, and what would a level up look like for you at this point? Maybe that's a good place to start.
Yeah. So let's start with what an FSO is, right? So for those that don't know, it's a franchise sales organization. And when I get asked by candidates, because they always, I would say like maybe 40% ask, hey, just, I looked you up, did some due diligence. So are you with the brand or you're not? Right. And so the way I describe it is it's like real estate. You got a buyer's agent and a seller's agent. And so the same way your consultant's representing you, trying to find the right fit, we're representing the brand, trying to find the right fit too for what they got going on here. And so we're really just outsourced. So there's a lot of brands that are coming up that don't have the infrastructure to do development in-house. And why I do like the outsourcing aspect of it for a lot of franchisors, even if you do, it takes your time off the recruiting process, because it's a lot. Like, we go through, I'm sure you do too, go through a lot of calls just to get to the right folks and, educating them on the process, the business and all that kind of stuff, and pointing them in the right direction. Hey, making sure they're doing their due diligence. And ultimately, we want to get the franchisor involved throughout the process, right? And so for us, we have weekly calls. Once a week, you have access to the corporate leadership team who will jump on Zoom and answer any questions about business operations that our candidates have. And then we offer franchisee validation, where obviously you can reach out, and I encourage you to reach out to any franchise partner we have in the FDD, as you should. And obviously they're busy running businesses. I know how hard it is to get in front of them at times. And so they'll volunteer to come on and speak to candidates, and they can answer any and all questions around the financials and KPIs that, myself and the corporate team can't. And so the way I look at myself, dude, I'm just a facilitator, right? I'm just trying to help people navigate the process and find out if there's a good marriage between the candidate there and the brand. So I'm going to get this number wrong, and maybe I get fired for this. 26 brands, 27 brands. I mean, we keep adding some and changing them, which is a good thing, right? Like, and first of all, I think we have an amazing vetting process, right? We don't just take any brand. And so there's a lot that the brand has to really pass or check off for us to say, hey, they can handle scale. Because oftentimes when you come into Fastlane, you have a lot of exposure to the consultant networks, because they got me on the road, that, like, not only going to Memphis, like I'm on the go all the time. And we're just trying to talk to great consultants like yourself who have the candidates who are looking for a business. And it's very, very time consuming. And so it makes sense for the franchisor to not invest all their time trying to find the right people. They need to go run the business, dude, because I'm selling you the business opportunity. If I'm the guy that's the president and COO and trying to go sell you on why you should come here, it's like, well, then who's going to run the business? Right. And so, and for me to award more territories and get people excited is the unit economics. And so that's what the brand's doing every day, is how can we continue to drive the store economics to make sure these businesses are profitable and find success and ultimately growing. And so that's where, I think Fastlane comes into play. That might be a long way, a winded answer to answer your question. Hopefully it touches on it a little bit.
No, that was a good answer. The question itself wasn't as succinct as I wanted it to be. So I'll probably edit out a couple of the nonsense that I was saying, because your answer there was really good. Because I agree, again, that there's so many different pillars of franchise organizations, right? You typically have the founding location and whatever their outreach is, if they have corporate stores or whatever that looks like. Then you have the franchise sales piece and development, and then you have the franchise support piece. And I think what people underestimate, I get people talking to me all the time about, hey, I have a small business, I want to franchise it. They don't understand that you're creating 2 or 3 additional businesses within the greater franchise umbrella, if that's the route that you want to go. So essentially 100%. At FSO, you guys are taking on the franchise sales and franchise development, so the actual founding company can maintain their current locations and then provide great support. The thing that you have to remember, whatever side you're on, as a franchisee or a franchisor, that relationship is so special. It needs to be stewarded so well and not taken for granted. And so you guys play a very pivotal piece in order to allow the franchise companies to continue to operate and do what they need to do. That's 100%. Good.
And then you had asked about the teams of Franchise Fastlane. The teams really don't, there's not like, I can't really describe it. There's no difference in teams. Like each team will have a VP, because you can't have one VP for all the brands we have, right? So you want to segment that out. And so, they're just broken up that way. It's more for to make sure that everyone, there's a little bit of a culture there. And I do enjoy my team. Shout out to Jessica once again, Team White, one of the top teams in my opinion. But the teams that you should be worried about, once again, are these franchisors, right? One of the things that stood out to me is when Fastlane presented a wax pot to myself and Jessica on, hey, this brand's coming in. What do you guys think about it? One, my eyes open because of the waxing. I'm like, dude, I've been getting my eyebrows waxed for a long time. I can get behind that, right? And it's, like I said, it's no different than fitness. And then I saw the unit economics. I'm like, no way they're generating $1 million top line revenues, right? Because I came from fitness and my ego is like, dude, if we can't do it in the fitness studios, generate millions of dollars, you're not doing it, right? But I was wrong. And so you see the top line revenue was through the roof, and then the margins even cleaner, right? I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense, right? It's asset light, meaning that there's not a lot of things that go into the store, right? You got tables and just a waxing pot, right? And then your people, right? Then your people, and then more importantly, Mike Abramson, he's the president and COO of Waxpot. He's the main reason why I told Jess, like, hey, we have to have this brand. Like, I want to be on it. Like, I think because number one, if you don't know Mike, a huge background once again, right? The guy was at he franchised D1 Trains, so was a big part of their development, which was a part of Fastlane back in the day. So he was there for over like 10 years, I think, so 10 to 12 years. And then he was also at Exponential Fitness prior to me being there. He left just before I got there, but he was the chief operating officer, so helped take them public and was instrumental in negotiating national partnerships, right? And that's huge, but because when you look at a lot of emerging brands, and this is to talk founders, I think founders are phenomenal and they're the ones that brought the business to life, but every business goes through a different phase. And oftentimes you need a different leader, right? If I'm a great founder, that's not necessarily going to make me a great leader for the next phase in the business. And so when you got someone of Mike's stature and experience coming to lead this brand with a lot of glory into a very, very in-demand market, dude, that's phenomenal. And when you talk to current franchise partners, Mike just started earlier this year. And so he's already recruiting talent and building that corporate team. The current franchise partners are just talking about the immediate impact Mike's had and his team on the system already, right? And so that's a big, big deal to me. So when you're looking at a franchise brand, you got to consider the passion, the widget, the end service that you're offering, but also who's leading the charge. And so we're an emerging brand with a veteran leadership team, which doesn't happen very often. And to me, that's why I get so excited about it, right? And so when you're looking at any team, whether it's, Fastlane's one thing, but you got to look at the franchisor you're getting into and what team they're putting out on the field. And if it's strong, good chance you're going to have a lot of success, right? Because they know scale, they know what it takes to build, like you said earlier, the departments that go into building a brand. So, that's where on Mike's radar, and he's already putting the pieces in place to make sure that this thing scales at an appropriate pace and can still deliver success to franchisees.
No, it's good stuff, man. You hit it right there on the head. A couple things I want to hit on before we wrap up. We're getting close to the fourth quarter, man. We're just sitting here chopping it up. I could talk to you for a minute. But the team, so a franchise partner, they launch. What does the team look like, and what does their role in the business look like? I'm assuming, and the listener probably should, maybe they don't know, though. You're not, the franchise owner isn't the one waxing legs and doing Brazilian waxes. Or
right.
are they? Like, what does it look like post-launch? What type of team are they hiring, and what does the day-to-day look like for an owner beginning to, when they start building this thing?
Yeah, a phenomenal question. So, number one, if you want to wax, you're more than happy to. I don't think we're going to turn anyone away from if their passion's to really be a waxer, which in my mind, if you're a current waxer and you got it like that and you got some money to invest and this is what you want to be, probably a good look.
Come on. Yeah, let's go.
Now, I don't know if we have any franchise partner that's actually performing waxing. I know we have some that want to go in and be hands-on because that's what they like. And there's nothing wrong with being an owner operator. I think that's good for a lot of people. And then I would say most of our franchisees, we have currently 9 out of the 24 locations that we have open. 75% of our multi-unit operators, right? And they own multiple locations or they're about to start looking for their additional location. And they're running at what you hear is like the executive model, meaning that, hey, you're going to have a studio salon manager in place. Then you're going to have your waxers and then you're going to have your front desk, right? So the day you sign your franchise agreement, dude, the fun starts, right? And so the first thing we're going to run after is your site. And so you're going to work with, and I'm not even sure if we've made this announcement yet. And so if I say here, hopefully this comes out in a couple of days, Adam Pennington, who is also Exponential Fitness and 17 years experience in construction and real estate development and business development. He is now our Chief Revenue Officer. And so he's going to really hold your hand through the site selection process and leverage all his relationships across the country with real estate agents and contractors, all that kind of good stuff. So we go find your site. And in that time, once you start signing your lease agreement, you're probably starting to build out your team. And so the first hire you're going to look for, if you're looking to be an executive owner, is your salon manager. Once you source that salon manager, and I think you should look at this person as your right-hand person, right? And with the amount of territory we have available, and if your play is multiple units, that's the person you want to grow with, and you make that clear. Hey, I have a career development path for you.
There it
If this
is.
thing works out the way we want to do, and so hey, here's what we're starting with. One, I want to teach you the business so that you grow and scale this thing with me, and incentivize them. Right? I think they should be incentivized to grow with you, and that salon manager is going to help start running point in correlation with our franchise business coach to go start recruiting talent at local beauty schools, cosmetology schools. And that's the other cool thing, right? Is our waxers have already put themselves through beauty and cosmetology school, right? So they've already invested the dollars. They want to be in this space. We just have to show up and share the why behind the what and why WaxPod. And the corporate team is going to, and now from my understanding, waxing isn't very hands-on throughout beauty or cosmetology school. So we're going to deliver that training for them on the corporate level. So tons of support on that. That's ongoing. We actually help train one of your waxers in the studio. So when you're ever onboarding someone moving forward, that you're just constantly, shooting out talent and always able to onboard and train people. So you're probably going to start around with 4 to 6. We recommend 4 to 6 treatment rooms. And obviously as you scale, you're going to want to add waxers because, mostly people like time off, right? And so they got to manage that schedule.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It comes down to availability, right? We're a schedule-based business. So the more waxing specialists you have, chances are you have an open schedule, and that's going to allow you to fill that up and in turn make a little bit more money. And then you're going to go find, a handful of front desk people to help man that desk, and you're off and running. Like I said, no shortage of support through Adam with the real estate site selection. And he's already working on, different types of sales programs to help drive in-store sales. And then we just brought on Jenna, who's been in the beauty space for, I think, over 16 years, or she's been an esthetician for 16 years. And she was actually a corporate trainer for European Wax Center for a handful of years. So, we brought on some really major players to help train franchise partners and their staff. And this is why I get so excited about it. And we're just very, very, very excited for what the future holds here in the next few months.
It's cool, man. I find that your circle often dictates your level of success. And so the fact that you guys have some big hitters in the industry and also in franchising that are coming to come on, I mean, that can only be a good thing. I love that you talked about the difference between like an owner-operator model and something that's closer to an executive model. And it's totally possible for franchisees. And I just think about my journey as, in Mosquito Joe, so a mosquito control concept, that one is structured so much more intimately as an owner-operator, where somebody could have started out as an executive. Just where you fall in the business in a launch period just seems like some businesses, some franchise brands lean closer one way or the other, but the team structure still looks the same. I mean, you still have technicians, you still have an admin, and then you still have a manager that is kind of leading the show. And Mosquito Joe, it just took time to build it up because we chose to be owner operators. Whereas an executive model, you're just putting more financial resources into the business. So it might take a little bit longer for you to actually put some money back into your pocket, but you're building the asset at such a scalable rate that if you're looking big picture, anyway, that the whole point is to just kind of explain to somebody like where they might lean one way or the other and how they might consider what concept they should, investigate further. So I appreciate that. The other thing you said, which was going to lean into my last question, because I think it applies to all franchise owners in all industries. When you start a business, especially a business where you're going to manage people, you have to be focused on the career development of your folks, or else nobody's going to be attracted to come work for your small business. They'll get better benefits for a big company. They have to get 100%. Value of coming to work for you. So here's the question, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Because again, I feel like I've liked this conversation a lot. What other things should franchisees be prepped for when they start going down the path of looking at, before you talk to them as a development rep for WaxPod, but it could be for any brand? What are some things that you want them to kind of have their mindset prepared for before they talk to you?
Yeah, and to button up what you said last, because I think it's super important, when you said owner-operator versus executive and how you started, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. There's only a right answer for you. And so I love that you said that, and you're setting your candidates up for success, because, dude, just because I'm doing executive doesn't mean you need to. And if you're owner-operator, doesn't mean I need to be owner-operator. But to your point, understand that if I'm executive, margins are a little bit smaller because I have a manager in place, but it's a long-term play versus owner-operator. Well, I have a higher margin, but I'm working more. So once again, whatever play you want to run, that works for you, but understand what comes with it, right? So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenal question. I think what needs to be on everyone's mind before they even talk to a brand, or by the time the conversations with you guys as consultants, is they need to ask themselves one thing: is, am I prepared to lead people? I keep coming back to that because I think that's what you're doing, right? Is you're leading people, even if it's one, even if it's two, you're still a manager. And I try to remind candidates, I don't want to keep calling people, I remind candidates that for most businesses, you're probably hiring frontline team members, meaning that you're not hiring $120,000 salary employees. You're hiring humans that you used to be, meaning that at some point you were 21 years old and you were the millennial that people said didn't know how to grind, didn't know how to work, right? That just first generation. But someone at some point in your career probably gave you some game, right? They invested into you, and that's how you got to where you're at now. And so we oftentimes forget that. So as much as you're going to impact not only the consumers in the market, the way you impact that is through your team members. So the person you're going to have the biggest impact on is your team. And so if you're not prepared to absorb that responsibility, because it is a responsibility, I don't think business ownership is for you.
Man, I could have dropped the mic on that one. That's good. That's good. No, I think that's important. I said it a second ago. You added to it. You said a little bit better. It's all that is it right there. If you're not ready to develop people, if you're not ready to grind and put in for the business, invest in a different way. Franchise ownership is not for everybody. It's not for every entrepreneur, but there is a special opportunity if you can find the right fit for you, and if you have the right mindset to build something special for yourself, for your community, and it truly can be a beautiful thing. Well, Mr. Manny, what did we miss? Anything else you want to talk about? Holler at?
No, man, I think that honestly, I enjoyed the conversation, dude. Cool. And I really appreciate it. I love your mentality. I think that, that's what you guys as consultants do. The good ones is really setting people up for success and making sure that mentality is there, and, making sure that you guys are finding that right opportunity. So I appreciate everything you guys do, and because it's not easy. Right. And so I appreciate the time. And the last thing I say to everyone here is, dude, watch out for WaxPod. Dude, I'm very competitive. And again, I take this very seriously, right? Like from the operation standpoint, I'm trying to find the right person to come grow this brand with us. And this is going to be a national brand. I'm calling that out right now. This is the next big thing. And I couldn't be more excited to be a part of it.
Man, well, Manny, I appreciate you. To the listener, if you guys are interested in WaxPot or any franchise brand for that matter, give me a call. I can connect you to the team. We try to keep it authentic here, right? Like I've got a very specific and intentional flow that it might turn some people away, but at the end of the day, we're going to be authentic and we're going to be real. And I appreciate you for coming on and matching that vibe. I think you did the Streetwise stage justice, man. If you ever want to come back, I
appreciate that.
Just holler at me.
Absolutely.
But to the listener, appreciate you for making it this far. Until next time, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace. All right, everybody. That's a wrap. Thank you so much for making it to the end. Hey, if this episode added any value to your life at all, please like it, share it, give me a 5-star review. It's the only way that this show is going to gain traction and help more people achieve their dreams. If you're ready to start your franchise journey, visit streetwisefranchising.com. Let's set up a time to talk. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Until next time, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace.